Hey there, I'm Brad Miller and with Jason Medford, and today we are walking the spiritual path with you. And today we don't know what we're going to talk about yet, because we are going to practice kind of what we preach. And we often talk about listening for guidance, following signs, and things like that. And we're going to do that today here. Um, we don't know what we're going to talk about yet because I'm going to pull a card and the card will tell us what today's topic is about. So I know Jason's looking forward to this one. Um,
It's kind of like the monkey wrench one that we did before.
a little, except on that one, we actually talked a little bit about it before we started.
Yeah, this one we're
Um,
going into it cold.
so this
So,
one, we are going into it relatively blind, but trusting that whatever we need to talk about today, whatever needs to come through, whatever you as a listener of this podcast, watching it on YouTube, however you're taking this in, something that you need to hear or needs to come to you. So I'm going to be drawing our cards today. Um, for those of you who are interested, again, this is the Shaman's Dream Oracle. Not that it, again, is particularly important, because honestly, if you're drawing cards, you want to find a set that really speaks to you, that you're drawn to. I've got a couple different decks. Some of them I've touched rarely. Other ones, like my animal medicine cards, I do every single day. Um, Today, this one said that this is what needed to be drawn from. So we're going to draw the cards today. I'm going to shuffle them. Um, I generally shuffle my cards 9 times. And Jason, if you want to do that, if you want to talk about why 9 times is so special.
well, nine is it's a sacred number. Has a lot of different representations, but I like it's kind of a 3D quote from Tesla too, that said, when you start to understand three, six, and nine, you unlock the mysteries of the universe. And so nine is a very powerful number in a lot of ways about, some manifestation things, closing of a cycle, beginning of a new cycle. And again, there's a lot of places online that you can go to. Some people talk about it a little bit differently, but here, just like our card pull, I'm going to tell you something. We're going to give you some little tips, like real life practical stuff. Is If you want to know what the number nine means to you, at least at this time, go do a Google search. And whatever pops up in the first couple of spaces, when you read it, it's going to mean what it needs to mean to you that day. Why? Because just like Brad pulling this card deck, it seems so random, but it ain't random, right? And again, the number nine can show up in different times, in different ways, and mean different things at different times for each person as well.
That's
So,
right.
but it's a very powerful number.
Yeah. So I like to shuffle. I do say my animal cards when I do my animal medicine cards in the mornings. I shuffle them 9 times before I draw. Um, you don't have to shuffle them 9 times. It's up to you how you want to do it. You could shuffle it once, 3 times, 15 times, 4 times, whatever seems right to you. For me, 9 times. And then really the most important part though is the intention. Is why are we drawing the cards? Why are you picking out what you are? And in this case, for today, our intention is that we're drawing the card that has some message for us today, something that we need to talk about, something that will help us, Jason and myself, but also you as the listener, as the person watching this on YouTube, something that you need to hear too that will have an impact and help you along your path of, or your trek along the spiritual path. So, with that, today's card is this one. For those of you who can see or are watching it, you can
Get a
see
little
it.
bit closer. Mindful.
Mindful groupthink.
Oh, interesting.
And then again, this deck has a little book here to kind of explain kind of a little bit about what it is. At the end of the day, though, You have to decide what it means for you, but to kind of give a little bit of a guidance, a little bit of direction for it. Mindful is keeping a clear mind. The human mind can be so many things: a prison, a latrine, a circus, a temple, a cave. It can be a place of restriction or a place of never ending expansion. Right now, be careful of where you're wandering your mind. The quality of your thoughts is key as you're in a fertile time for full manifestation. You want to ensure that the seeds you plant will sprout and flourish into the life you seek to grow. Be mindful not to scatter weeds. It's easy to be influenced by others right now, too. Especially in a digital age, it's hard to protect yourself from the energy and the sheer amount of information bombarding you 24/7. We know that's very true. If you allow the fear and uncertainty to pollute your mind and emotions, you will fill yourself up with this negativity and then see more of it in your outer world. Stay out of gossip and other forms of groupthink, for when you cut another person down to their level due to their perceived mistakes or limit them by your envy, you activate lack for yourself. So fill yourself with thoughts of plenty. Imagine your universe unfettered by scarcity and alive with abundant hope and goodness. Be mindful of what your mind is full of and keep the faith. Good brings more good. Love brings more love. Gratitude, more things to be grateful for.
Hmm. So I think just kind of a practical, guidance again, just like I said with, which card you pull, whether you do a Google search, what pops up at the top, it's the same thing. So at least the way that when I'm reading something behind what goes with the card, regardless of what kind of deck it is,
Mhm,
everything in that may not resonate with me at a particular time, but when I go through and read it, there are certain things that will pop out at me, right? And so when you do it
mhm,
with that kind of an intention, as Brad was reading that, there were probably certain things that really just kind of jumped out at you that meant something to you.
mhm,
And they could have been different things than what jumped out to me and what jumped out to Brad, right? Because we're doing this as if, hey, there's three of us in the room. We just pulled this card. So Brad and I are going to talk about what came to us, right? In your
Yep.
mind, as you're listening, right? Think about what came to you and maybe what's
Mhm,
coming through us as well, and just try to figure out why you needed to hear this today. But I thought it was interesting because mindful, when we just say mindful, the word
mhm.
mindful is Mindful. But
Yep.
the card was mind, one word, full, Full, two separate words.
Mhm,
And so that's interesting because our minds do get very full, especially in this data age, like I said, digital age. There's
mhm,
so much, right, that can go into and fill up our mind. And is our mind full? And so this kind of ties actually into what we just recorded on the previous episode that you probably listened to last week. But
And
I
if
made
not, stop this one and go back and watch that
you can go
one.
back and watch the other one. But I made reference to, when you show
Mhm,
up to your dawn, you never go empty-handed and you show up clean and empty. That's how you do it. You don't go empty-handed, you show up clean, you show up empty. Now, what that means, right? We talked about Heine and showing up with something, some kind of offering. But to be clean and to be empty means that you go having cleaned up your energy, gotten out of your shit, whether that's physically, saging or doing other cleansing rituals, focusing on that, but also in emptying your mind. Because when you go and sit before an elder or a Nawal or a Don and they are filling you up, they have a whole big pitcher effectively, right? That they want to give you. Well, if you come with your glass already full, how much can they give you? Not very much. But if you empty your glass and come empty, then it can be filled with what they're giving you. And so our mind is that way too, right? Is it's like the universe wants to give you things. It wants to give you inspiration. It wants to give you guidance. It wants to show you love. But if your mind is so full that nothing else will fit in there, then it can't give it to you. And so that's why being in the present moment, watching what we're consuming from a media perspective, what we're consuming food wise, all these different things, right, to make sure that we are prepared to receive.
Hmm.
Because if not, that's where, sometimes we talked about like monkey mind. People are like, "Ah," right? Well, if you have monkey mind, you're not going to be able to slow down and be in a meditative state and be able to receive that intuition from
Hmm.
from the universe. You got to
Yeah.
empty the mind to do that.
Yeah, because if you've got all the voices going on, if you've got all the troubles of the world, elections and economy and all these other things going on, and what am I going to wear, and just all these things going on in your head, it's very difficult to see the signs. I know we've talked about on many episodes about the different signs that come. Um, the and sometimes it's for Jason's a song lyric. It might be just something words that pop in your head. It could be something you see that triggers something. Messages for you, things like that. But if you've got all this other stuff in your head, you aren't able to pick up on that stuff. There's no room for that because your mind is just so noisy, as it were. Like the monkey mind is a great kind of analogy for that. Um, and so it's really important to clean it out, create some space, quiet things down a little bit. And that's where the mindful, being mindful, MINDFUL, comes in, I think, because being mindful is a good way to work on quieting all those voices in your head, all those things that are going on, to focus on the gratitude, to focus on the present, the now, you know, focus on your body, those different exercises that you can do, those practices that you can do to kind of bring yourself into the moment, and to help get away from all that other stuff. Because all that other stuff is either past things that you're worried about or they're future fears. They're things that you're afraid is going to happen in the future. Like, well, what's going to happen when this happens? And what's going to happen in 3 months? And, I did this in the past. So how's that? All that stuff is either already happened, it's done, no longer exists, or it has yet to come. So it doesn't even exist, right? So all there is this what's in the present right now. And if you can get everything clear and just focus on that, um, then you're opening to, like you said, the sensations, the messages, the things that come to you, um, all those stuff that we talk about, the fun things that you probably want to get on the spiritual path for, because you want to be able to you know, hear messages and have spiritual gifts and, I don't see dead people and things like that won't happen. That can't happen unless you're able to kind of quiet things down and open yourself up to those.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, one thing that ends up happening when one is on a spiritual path is we have to start being more aware of what we are consuming.
Mhm.
And so, this is again, when I say consume, I am meaning food, but I'm meaning other things as well. And so, as an example, I really like rock and roll music. I particularly enjoy heavy metal. Uh, but
Jason is a closet headbanger, so
I'm a closet headbanger, but I will tell you that I have listened to very little heavy metal recently. In
mhm.
fact, it's probably been a couple of years. since I've really listened to it. Now, there's some practical reasons for it that we won't get all into here, but there are actually some chords and some progressions that are actually used in heavy metal, in some heavy metal, that is actually damaging frequencies. And we don't get into all that now, but I'm just telling you one of the practical reasons for it. Okay. Some other things is there's been some studies that have been done, especially like David Hawkins that did the scale of
Mm-hmm.
consciousness, and his research showed that it would take at least a half an hour to kind of clear out some of the things that people have been listening to heavy metal music, um, before they could go and do some other things. So anyway, there's some practical things, but I just haven't been as drawn to it, and I've been
Mm-hmm.
more conscious and intentional about what I'm putting into my mind. So I still listen to music, but it's usually more the music that pops into my head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or that I get from Dreamtime. And so, I've been on a David Bowie kick for months. I'd listen to his music almost every day. Why? I don't know. But, that's what just kept coming through. And so I tend to now kind of listen to things more intuitively that way.
Mm-hmm.
I read very few books, and it's not because it's because even though a lot of it's well intentioned, there's often a lot of misunderstanding, conflicts between different things, right? And so often the more we consume, sometimes from an intellectual perspective, the more confused we get too, because the things that we're reading, the things that we're listening to seem to contradict themselves. And so it leaves us even more confused than we were before, instead of actually just getting quiet, going inside, asking your higher self what's really true, instead of, all this contradictory things that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting too that they put groupthink in there because not to talk about the election, but I could sense a palpable difference in the energy in the United States, before, during, and after the election. Now we've kind of come through this a little bit now, but there was probably a 14 to 20-day period where the groupthink on this earth was really chaotic and
Mm-hmm.
very heavy. And so, again, I think it's the idea of not allowing yourself to get into some of the groupthink and the, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, did you see the latest news article, sort of thing, but kind of standing our ground and deciding what we're actually going to fill our mind with and choosing what we're going to put into it.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the stuff that's out there in society from a media perspective is poison to your spirituality.
And
Just
often it's
like it's just
intentional
and it's
poison.
intentional to do that. And it's no different than eating cyanide, you know? So,
Yeah. No, after the election, I mean, I could feel, you could tell that there was definitely a nervousness, let's just say, before the election. But afterwards, and we spoke after the day after the election, um, and I could, I for the first time, I could actually feel just something about just the overall energy. Like I could tell this wasn't mine out there. There's a lot of fear that I was feeling, a lot of, like you said, the chaoticness of it all, to the point where I actually, so it took me, I felt it for a couple days afterwards, and then actually got sick.
mm,
I was physically sick for about a week after that, because of everything, because of all just the draining that it did to me. And I've just tried to be very careful about pushing, creating a bubble around myself and things like that. But just being around it just was just too much for my body to handle. And so, got sick coming out of that. So definitely something to be mindful of. And like I said, it was the first time I felt that kind of a sensation. And so, um, a lot of stuff going there. The other thing is I like to joke to people that I'm in my classical phase of life because, like you, I've not been able to listen to some of the music I used to. Um, I was never. I take that back. In high school, I would listen to rock and roll, heavy metal music. Um, and then kind of after high school, going into college and stuff like that, I kind of went to a little bit more of an alternative,
Hmm.
some Beatles, some different things like that in there. A little bit easy, softer stuff like that. But probably for the last 5 or 6 years, my radio was pretty much permanently tuned to the classical station because I just can't do the heavy stuff anymore.
Hmm.
And even and heavy is a relative term because even some of the kind of alternative pop stuff going out there is still too much. And it's just I can kind of sense the chaos in the music, some of the energy behind the lyrics. Like even if I don't, catch all the lyrics, because half the time, especially if you listen to the radio, you don't really catch a lot of the words that are being there. You kind of take it in, but just the energy behind it all, um, I just can't do it. And so I've listened to classical now all the time. If I put music on, I put on some classical stuff, maybe some piano music or, even some relaxation music, just something that's a lot easier and more soothing because I can't anymore, um, deal with. I can't consume that kind of stuff anymore.
Well, and I think it's, this is a good thing to just touch on briefly too, because it's, everybody that's listening, you don't have to go listen to classical music. Brad's not telling you that you have to go
No,
listen to
no, no.
classical music to be spiritual, right? It's like it's what resonates with you. What do you feel drawn to? What feels right for you?
Hmm.
And like I said, even when there's certain frequencies I don't deal with well. I don't know what they're doing in these new cars, but like the Teslas and a bunch of them now, when they
Hmm.
back up, they make this frequency that is just like nails on a chalkboard to me. I just cannot handle it. It's like an evil frequency to me. It just, when I hear that, that's me. It might not affect
Hmm.
Brad the same way. It might not affect you the same way. Same thing with music, right? It's like, what are you drawn to? How do you feel? Is it helping you love more, open up more, feel your intuition, or is it making you angry? Is it making you feel chaotic, feel, like you want to
Yeah.
fight, just to start paying attention to it because again, the media, TV that we watch, right? Reality TV
Hmm.
shows are poison. It's fucking poison. Okay, to watch drama in other people's life because you are in effect taking that on and living that with them, right?
Hmm.
Again, violence, everybody's to each their own. I still enjoy watching very violent movies and they don't affect me, right? But for other people they do, right? And so you have to kind of gauge what that is. But it's also the people you hang around, the
Hmm.
friends that you have. And we've talked about that before that, if your mind is full and it's full of things that are not good for you, is some of that coming from the people you're hanging out with? And do you need to make a change there
Hmm.
in order to be able to empty your mind? I don't know. Only you will know if that's what you're supposed to be doing. But that's another thing that I think we often don't really think about in the larger consuming what we're consuming into our life.
Hmm. Yeah. Anything that comes from others, TV, radio, obviously movies, music, um, the stuff that's out there, social media. I mean, that's a big one, because it's so easy now. Anybody can go on and start spouting off whatever and putting their energy out there. Um, and it's not always very pleasant energy. I mean, I've, for the most part, gotten off of social media because it's just too much. It's just a lot of hate, a lot of anger. Um, there's only I only use it for very few reasons. Um, I've been on Instagram because I like the pictures, the pretty pictures of things, and so I like the energy of some of the pretty pictures of places, but I don't follow a lot of the other stuff, the brands and that kind of things in there because I don't want that. And the other stuff I've not really done, like Facebook, I'm only on there because there's some like local business stuff that don't have a website. So if you want information about them, you have to go on Facebook. And there's a couple groups that I'm a part of that have a Facebook presence, and that's the only place that they're at. But otherwise, I don't do social media stuff for the most part.
Mhm.
LinkedIn is the big exception where I spend a lot of my time on. But again, that's more of a professional kind of a thing.
For
But even
business
then,
for business
sometimes
reasons. Yeah.
right. But
Part of your
even then,
job.
sometimes you can feel hate on there. You can feel anger. Around the election time, there was a lot of fear on there. There's still things pop up that you see. Sometimes that's backhanded remarks about it, where they don't outright say something, but you can feel behind it that there's energy there, kind of what their intention is,
Mhm.
and that they're implying. And it's being aware, and that's one of the things that I think is key about walking the spiritual path is increasing your awareness. So much of our lives, I think I've seen something like 90% of our lives are happen subconsciously. When it comes to how to, I mean, how we walk. Like you don't actually consciously think about, okay, to walk, I need to take my leg and move it this way and put it in front of me. And then I take my other leg and I move it and put it this way. And then, you don't think consciously about that. It all happens subconsciously. And so we don't realize what's going on behind the scenes with all these things. Um, and that's what's happening with all this stuff. It's kind of hitting us behind the scenes. We're not thinking about it. And so it's important to try to bring some of that stuff out to the conscious awareness so that you see what's going on. You can see the energy, feel the energy, whatever you want to say, behind some of the things that are being put out there. You can say, ooh, how's this making me feel? What impact is this having on me? You know, not, scare or violent movies don't really have an impact on Jason, for instance. But, heavy metal music, some of it does, and so
Mhm.
just becoming aware of those things of how you are impacted by things. Because, like you said, it's not that everyone reacts the same way. And it's not that you need to do one thing just because someone else says something or another. It's kind of up to you personally what works for you, what draws to you, what feelings you have from it all.
Yeah, because and a lot of it is you can, again, just sense how you're feeling,
Hmm.
right? Does it put you in a place of anxiety or fear? Or does it put you in a place of love and gratitude and openness and maybe even courage?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay to be angry for a little while to get some things done. And so sometimes maybe you need to listen to some music that, encourages you to be a little bit angry and courageous to move on to the next thing. I mean, you're going to know what that is because everybody is different, on what's right for them. But like you said, and I think it's the more aware I have become of what's going on in my brain,
Hmm.
right? There's certain times of the day that I have a harder time with it. I've been working on a practice. I'm kind of supposed to do it. You wake up and I lay in bed for a little while and do this practice before I get out of bed. But my monkey mind is going crazy when I first wake up in the morning. I don't know why. That's something that I've got to deal with. I've got to work on. Where, throughout most of the rest of the day, no problem. Zen, quiet, close my eyes, can focus on the present much easier than when I first wake up in the morning. Right. But it's becoming more aware of what's going on, the intentionality behind it, and so, something that you can try it, don't try it, it's up to you, but can you sit there for a minute or for 5 minutes and just be in the present moment and remove those thoughts, empty your mind, let the monkey mind go. Can you do that? Can you be in a meditative state? Whether you're on the yoga mat going om or you're just sitting in your chair on your porch, can you do it for a few minutes? And if you can't, then your mind's probably full. And it's time to start emptying and letting go of things. And, again, it's sometimes people are like, well, but how do you do that? Well, you can move your attention somewhere
Hmm.
else, right? That's one way to do it. You can literally just let it go, right? Where I just sit there and sometimes I'm like, I am so pissed off. Oh, I let go being pissed off and I replace it with love. And I just say something like that to myself in my mind and I let it go. And then if it comes back, I say it again until
Hmm.
I command that be gone and it doesn't come back
Hmm.
until the next thing. But, I think that's a good barometer. Are you feeling confused and frantic? Well, if you are, then probably your mind is full. It's racing.
Hmm.
It's going where, it feels overworked. Do you feel exhausted, even though you're not really doing any physical labor? If you do, your mind is probably full and it's racing, and that's why you're feeling that way, right? So just start
Hmm.
paying attention to some of these things and start practicing, whether it's for a minute, 5 minutes, 4 hours, doesn't matter, right? Just start with something because every every moment when we can truly be in the present moment, even if it's for a fraction of a second, is a beautiful place to be, even if it's only for a second. And a second turns into 30 seconds. 30 seconds turns into a couple minutes, and a couple minutes turns into a couple hours. And the more you practice it, the more you get better at it. You're going to find that you are in a meditative state most of the time, and your life is totally transformed at that point.
And that's the goal.
Yeah.
But that's not, yeah, as easy as it sounds. Obviously.
Well, that's why we usually call them spiritual practices,
Yeah, that's why it's a
because you
path and it's
have
not
to
a.
practice, 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 practice. The path is not 5 feet long. Woohoo, I made it.
Hmm. At the end, that's right.
It's like the born again Christians, which has always kind of gotten me. And again, no disrespect to them, but their belief is once I claim Jesus and give myself over and say, Jesus, I give myself to you. Hallelujah. I was born again on November, whatever today is, right? And then I don't have to do anything more. I'm saved at that point. Well, that's not how it works. You have to practice. You have to keep moving each day, right? And that's why it's a path. That's why we use that metaphor of the spiritual path, because we're never done. Every day, you got to wash the dishes. Every day, you got to get water. Every day, you got to chop wood, right? And why do I say that? There's an old Buddhist proverb, right? Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. It never stops. It never stops, right? And so, but I think again, we're supposed to talk about this mindful today because it's a reminder for me, as well, that I'm still working on this as well. Come empty, come empty, come empty. Let it
Hmm.
go so I can be filled up again. Let it go so I can be filled up again. Let it go so I can be filled up again. And the more that we do that, the more our world changes, the more we start actually receiving more of the inspiration, feel the peace, feel the love in our life that people really want.
Hmm.
We don't want to be stressed out, living in drama and fear and anxiety. I don't know anybody, when you say, well, what do you really want? They don't say, I want to just be like pulling my hair out from anxiety and fear. No, they say, I just want to be happy.
I want
I
some
just
peace of
want to be
mind.
happy, or I want peace of mind, well-being. That's what people want. That's where this path leads to. But it takes work, and only you can do the work. So,
Yeah, you can't hire someone to do the work for you. Can't
mm,
outsource it. Um,
yeah, it doesn't matter how rich you are.
no,
You can't do it. You
no,
can't do it by hiring other people to do it for you. You got to do the work. Everybody's got to do
you
their own
can't.
push-ups.
Yeah, you can't buy shortcuts or anything else either. Try to, skip over,
Go
warp
pay a
over to this side of the world.
guru $1 million and now you're saved. No, it doesn't work
Yeah,
that way.
yeah, yeah. Indulgences and such. Yeah.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm, mhm.
so, yeah,
Well, that was kind of
good.
fun, Brad. We might have to do that
Yeah,
again in a future episode too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, though, as we kind of talk about, just kind of listening to what comes to us, and again, trying to come up with some topic. What do we need to talk about today? And it came to mind that we need to pull a card for it, and that would be fun to draw one in the middle of the call and see the recording here and see what comes up. What do we talk about? And says as opposed to kind of sitting there and thinking about it a couple of minutes. Not that we really think too much about what we're talking about anyway. Obviously, if you've watched us, you know that. But yeah, just to kind of see what comes up and go for it. So hopefully, that you guys listening today were able to grab something out of the discussion today, out of the definitions, the things that we talked about out of the book, or even just the idea of mindful. Maybe that
Mhm.
just by itself triggered something in you, and you were able to kind of go with it, to run with something, and it helped you in some way. So
Yeah. Well, and again, may you be more mindful of emptying your mind, right? And allowing the light in and finding out what is best for you to consume or not to consume so that you can feel that peace and love. And so may you feel that peace and love in your life as you place awareness on it. So, with that, everybody, much thanks and much love to you for listening. And we will see you on the next episode.
catch you guys later.